girl vanished from her bed in 1991. 9 years later, mom plays her old recording toy. It was the summer of 1991, and life in the small town was slow and peaceful. People trusted their neighbors, children played outside until the sun went down, and most families never locked their doors at night. In one such home lived a little girl named Emily. She was just 8 years old, with a laugh that could brighten up the whole house and a curious mind that always asked questions. Her mother often said that Emily's voice was the sweetest sound she ever heard, and she kept every drawing and little craft her daughter made as treasures. That night began like any other ordinary evening. Emily had been playing in the yard earlier, chasing fireflies with her cousin. She wore a little summer dress with tiny flowers printed on it and refused to come inside until her mother called her 3 times. When she finally stepped into the house, her hair was a little messy, her cheeks were pink, and her hands were filled with tiny flowers she had picked for her mother. Inside, the family sat down for dinner. Emily was always full of stories. She talked about the butterfly she almost caught, about how she was sure the neighbor's dog could understand human language, and about how she wanted to be a teacher one day. Her mother listened, smiling and laughing, sometimes reminding Emily to finish her food before it got cold. After dinner, Emily helped clear the table in her small but cheerful way. She was the kind of child who hummed to herself while working, creating little songs with no particular tune. Her mother loved watching her like this, full of life, full of imagination. The father read the newspaper nearby, occasionally glancing at his daughter with quiet pride. As bedtime approached, Emily grew sleepy. She loved bedtime because it always came with stories. That night, her mother read her a fairy tale about a brave princess who saved her village. Emily listened with wide eyes, occasionally interrupting to ask, "But what if the dragon was friendly, or could the princess also go to school like me?" Her imagination always found a way to make the story her own. When the story was over, Emily hugged her favorite toy, a soft stuffed bear with one missing button eye. She had given it a name, Mr. Buttons, and never slept without it. She kissed her mother good night, whispered a little "I love you," and pulled the blanket up to her chin. Her mother tucked her in carefully, brushed the hair away from her forehead, and switched off the light. The house was calm after that. The parents sat in the living room for a while, talking about ordinary things, the bills that needed to be paid, the grocery list, and the upcoming weekend when relatives were supposed to visit. It was a quiet, peaceful night, just like dozens of nights before. Outside, the street was silent, with only the soft sound of crickets in the background. In her room, Emily drifted off to sleep, holding Mr. Buttons tightly. She dreamed of magical places where the stars could talk and fireflies lit the path like lanterns. Her breathing was slow and steady, the innocent rest of a child who felt safe in her own little world. The house itself carried a sense of warmth and comfort. Family photos lined the walls, showing smiles from birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments. The living room had a worn-out sofa where Emily often curled up to watch cartoons. Everything about the house spoke of love and normal family life. Nothing felt out of place. The mother, before going to bed herself, peeked once more into Emily's room. She always did that, even if Emily was already fast asleep. That night, she opened the door quietly, saw her daughter lying there peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, and whispered softly, "Good night, my angel." She never knew that those words would become the memory she would cling to for years to come. At that moment, time seemed ordinary, almost too ordinary. No one in that house could have imagined that the night would be remembered forever, not because of its peace, but because of what the morning would bring. Life has a strange way of changing without warning, and sometimes the most normal evenings are the ones that become unforgettable. For now, though, in that small house in 1991, all was still. The town outside was quiet, the stars shone above, and a little girl slept in her bed, surrounded by love and comfort. The world felt safe, untouched, and perfect, at least for that one final night of innocence. The morning after that quiet night in 1991 began like any other. The sun was slowly rising, filling the small town with soft light. Birds chirped outside, neighbors were getting ready for work, and everything looked peaceful. Inside the house, however, life was about to take a turn that no one expected. When the mother walked into Emily's room to wake her up, she smiled at first, expecting to see her daughter still curled up with her stuffed bear. But when she pulled back the blanket, her heart skipped a beat. The bed was empty. The little bear, Mr. Buttons, lay on the pillow as if waiting for her. At first, she thought Emily had gotten up early, maybe to play with her toys or to sneak into the kitchen for breakfast. But when she checked the living room, the kitchen, and even the backyard, there was no sign of her daughter. The mother called Emily's name again and again, her voice rising with worry. The father, now fully awake, joined the search around the house. Every door was opened, every corner checked, and even the closets were pulled apart. But there was only silence. The small house, usually filled with the sound of Emily's laughter, felt painfully empty. When they could not find her anywhere, panic began to rise. The parents rushed outside, calling for their neighbors, asking if anyone had seen Emily. The neighbors quickly joined in, some leaving their breakfast unfinished to help. They searched the yards, the sidewalks, and even the nearby park where Emily often played. The police were called soon after. Uniformed officers arrived, and the quiet street suddenly filled with cars, radios crackling, and the sound of voices calling Emily's name. Flyers were quickly made with her photo, showing her bright smile and curious eyes. These were taped to streetlights, shop windows, and community boards. The whole town seemed to come together, determined to bring the little girl back home. For the mother, those first days felt like living in a dream, or rather, a nightmare she could not wake from. She replayed every moment from the night before, asking herself what she had missed. She remembered tucking Emily in, brushing the hair from her forehead, and whispering good night. How could such a peaceful night turn into such an empty morning? As the days passed, the search grew larger. Teams of people walked through fields, forests, and riversides, hoping to find even the smallest clue. The mother joined them, her eyes scanning every inch of the ground, her hands trembling as she picked up anything that looked like it could belong to her daughter. Every sound of a child's laughter in the distance made her heart jump, only for hope to fade again when it wasn't Emily. Reporters arrived, asking questions, filming the house, and telling the story to the world. Strangers from other towns even came to help. The case touched many hearts because Emily's smile, captured in the photographs, was the kind that reminded people of their own children, nieces, or sisters. But as weeks turned into months, the trail grew cold. No matter how much effort was put in, no clear answers came. The posters of Emily's face started to fade from sunlight, and some were torn by the wind and rain. For the mother, however, the search never ended. She refused to believe her daughter could simply vanish. She kept Emily's room exactly the same as it had been on that last night, the stuffed bear on the pillow, the drawings taped to the walls, the small shoes neatly placed by the bed. It was her way of keeping hope alive, as if Emily might walk back in any day and pick up where she left off. Years began to pass, and life around the family kept moving. Neighbors changed, children grew up, and the world entered a new decade. But for the mother, time seemed frozen. Every birthday, she baked a cake for Emily, lit the candles, and whispered wishes into the empty room. Every holiday, she placed a small gift on her daughter's bed, wrapped with love, waiting for her return. Friends and relatives sometimes tried to comfort her, gently suggesting that maybe it was time to let go, but the mother could never accept that. She held on to the belief that one day, somehow, Emily would be found. She read every letter, followed every phone call, and listened to every story of a child that even slightly resembled her daughter. There were moments of false hope too. Once, someone claimed to have seen a girl with Emily's features in another town. The mother rushed there with all her heart, only to discover it was not her. Another time, a phone call came late at night with a voice saying they knew where Emily was. But it turned out to be a cruel trick. Even then, she didn't stop. Each disappointment only made her more determined, because deep down she felt a bond that could not be broken. Through all this, Emily's room remained untouched, like a little museum of her childhood. The toys, the books, and even the tiny notes she had written in her playful handwriting stayed where they had always been. The room became a place where the mother went whenever she needed strength. Sitting there, she could almost hear Emily's laughter again, almost feel her presence, and that gave her courage to face another day. 9 years is a long time, but for a mother's heart, it was as if only yesterday she had tucked her daughter in. The search may have slowed down for the world, but for her it never ended. She never stopped telling people about Emily, never stopped keeping her memory alive. And in doing so, she unknowingly kept the story open, waiting for a moment when fate would finally give her a sign. That sign would come in the most unexpected way, not from the outside world, but from within her own home. And it would begin with something so small, so simple, that no one could have imagined it could change everything: a forgotten toy, resting quietly in Emily's room. 9 long years had passed since that morning in 1991. Seasons had changed again and again, but for Emily's mother, every day still felt the same. The world outside kept moving, children grew up, new houses were built in the neighborhood, and life continued as if nothing had happened. But inside her heart, time had stopped. Emily's mother carried the weight of those years quietly, like a shadow that never left her side. She still woke up early every morning, still cooked meals for her family, still smiled politely when neighbors spoke to her. But behind her eyes lived a sadness that never faded. It showed most clearly in the evenings, when she would walk into Emily's room and sit on the bed, as if waiting for her little girl to return. The room looked almost the same as it had on the night Emily disappeared. The stuffed bear, Mr. Buttons, still sat on the pillow. The small bookshelf still carried fairy tales and coloring books. Drawings of flowers and stars, made by Emily's tiny hands, were still taped on the wall. Dust gathered over time, but her mother gently cleaned the shelves and folded the bed sheets, making sure everything stayed in order. She called it her way of keeping hope alive. Sometimes, she would sit on the edge of the bed and talk out loud, as if Emily could still hear her. She told her about the weather, about the neighbor's new dog, or about how much she missed her. Other times, she sat silently, just holding one of Emily's old toys, closing her eyes, and remembering the sound of her laughter. On Emily's birthdays, her mother continued a tradition that no one understood except her. She baked a small cake, placed candles on it, and sat in the room alone. With tears in her eyes, she whispered a wish, that her daughter would somehow return. Then she blew out the candles quietly. For her, it wasn't about celebrating. It was about holding on to a bond that distance and time could never break. Even when others gently suggested that maybe it was time to let go, she refused. Relatives and friends meant well when they told her, "You have to move forward." But she couldn't. A mother's heart doesn't follow logic. It doesn't follow calendars or years. It only follows love. And love, in her case, meant believing that somewhere, somehow, her daughter was still alive. Over those 9 years, she collected small things that reminded her of Emily. A ribbon she once wore, a school notebook with her handwriting, and even a shoe that had been left behind when she grew out of it. Each item became precious, like a treasure chest of memories. When she felt weak, she opened that chest and held those pieces of the past close to her heart. It wasn't easy. There were days when hope felt like a heavy burden. There were mornings when she questioned herself, what if Emily never comes back? What if I'm holding on to nothing? Those thoughts brought pain, but at the same time, they made her cling to hope even more strongly. She often told herself, if I stop believing, who will believe for her? One afternoon, as she was cleaning Emily's room, she came across an old toy that had been pushed to the back of a shelf. It was a small recording toy, one of those simple gadgets that could capture a child's voice and play it back. The edges were scratched, the colors had faded, and it looked like something long forgotten. She held it in her hands and smiled faintly. Memories came rushing back. She remembered Emily running around the house, pressing the button again and again, laughing at the sound of her own recorded voice. Sometimes she used it to record little songs she made up, or even just to say silly words and giggle at them. For the mother, it was more than a toy, it was a piece of her daughter's childhood, frozen in time. She sat down on the bed, turning the toy over in her hands. It was dusty, and she wondered if it would even work after all these years. Slowly, she pressed the button. For a moment, there was only static, a crackling sound, as if the toy was struggling to wake up after years of silence. But then, a small voice filled the room, the sweet, high-pitched voice of Emily. The sound hit her like a wave. It was her daughter's voice, exactly as she remembered it, innocent, playful, full of life. The mother gasped, tears welling up instantly. She pressed the toy closer to her ear, listening to every word. Emily had recorded a little message, just her saying hello. It's me. Can you hear me? Followed by laughter. The mother laughed through her tears, her hands trembling. For a moment, it felt as if Emily was right there in the room with her again, giggling and talking like nothing had ever changed. She pressed the button again and again, unable to stop. Each playback brought both joy and sadness. Joy, because she could hear her daughter's voice again. Sadness, because it reminded her of everything she had lost. But then something unexpected happened. In the background of one of the recordings, after Emily's cheerful words faded, the mother noticed a faint sound. At first, she thought it was just static. But when she listened again, carefully, she realized it was something else. A sound she had never noticed before. She froze, replaying the recording again and again, leaning closer each time. There was no mistake behind Emily's laughter, there was another sound. A voice. It was faint, almost hidden, but it was there. Her heart raced. What was it? Who was it? She couldn't understand the words, but she knew instantly that this was no ordinary background noise. It was something she had never heard before. Suddenly, the toy was no longer just a memory. It became something more. Something important. The mother sat on the bed, clutching the toy tightly, her mind racing. For 9 years she had been waiting for a sign, for anything that could bring her closer to her daughter. Could this forgotten toy be the key she had been praying for all this time? The more she thought about it, the more she realized she couldn't ignore it. The recording might hold answers, or at least questions that had never been asked before. And in that moment, hope, which had been flickering weakly for so many years, lit up inside her again like a flame. 9 years of waiting, of searching, of crying, of holding on, and now, a small toy in her hands gave her a reason to believe once more. The bond between a mother and child had never broken, and perhaps it was that bond that led her back to this forgotten toy. She knew she had to act. She knew she had to share this with someone who could understand it better. But in her heart, before she did anything else, she pressed the button one last time, closed her eyes, and let her daughter's voice surround her. In that moment, she whispered softly, "I hear you, Emily. I never stopped hearing you." When Emily's mother discovered the recording toy, it felt like the world had shifted around her. For 9 years, she had lived in silence, clinging to fading memories and unanswered questions. But now, the little toy had brought her something unexpected, something that made her believe there might still be more to the story. At first, she wasn't sure what she had really heard. She pressed the button again and again, letting Emily's sweet voice fill the room. The laughter was clear, the playful words unmistakable, but behind it lingered that faint, almost hidden sound. It wasn't loud, but it was there like a whisper, like something caught accidentally in the background. Her hands trembled as she held the toy closer to her ear. She rewound it, played it again, and each time she listened more carefully. It was not static, she was certain of that now. There was rhythm in it, a pattern, the tone of a human voice. She couldn't make out the exact words, but her heart told her it meant something. It was as if Emily had unknowingly captured a secret without even realizing it. The mother's thoughts raced. For years, she had begged for a sign, for anything to give her direction, and now she had it. She sat on the edge of the bed for hours, pressing the toy, listening, and whispering to herself, "This is something. This means something." That night, sleep did not come. She placed the toy on her bedside table, unable to let it out of her sight. Every few minutes, she would reach for it, press the button, and listen once again. The sound in the background felt like a clue she was meant to hear. She felt a strange mixture of emotion, sadness from hearing her daughter's voice again, but also hope, a kind of fire she hadn't felt in years. The next morning, she decided she could not keep this discovery to herself. She needed help. She reached out to the investigators who had once worked on Emily's case. At first, they were surprised. After all, 9 years had passed since the search had grown quiet. Many had moved on, convinced the mystery might never be solved. But when the mother told them about the recording toy, they agreed to listen. She brought the toy to the station, carrying it like something fragile and precious. Sitting across from the officers, she placed it on the table, her hands folded nervously in her lap. "Please," she said softly, "just listen." An officer pressed the button, and Emily's young, cheerful voice filled the quiet room. The sound of an innocent child saying hello, laughing, playing, it touched everyone who heard it. But as they listened again, the faint sound in the background caught their attention too. They exchanged glances, leaning closer to the toy, replaying it several times. "What is that?" one of them finally asked. The mother's eyes filled with tears. "That's what I've been hearing," she whispered. "It's not just noise. It's something more. Please tell me you hear it too." They nodded slowly. It wasn't clear yet, but the toy had indeed captured something unusual. For the first time in years, the case file was opened again. Investigators decided to examine the recording more carefully, using better equipment to clean up the sound. For the mother, waiting for the results felt like an eternity. Every day, she checked her phone, hoping for news. She walked around the house with restless energy, unable to focus on anything else. She returned to Emily's room often, holding the toy in her hands, whispering to her daughter, "We're closer now. I know we are." While waiting, memories flooded back to her. She remembered Emily holding the toy up to her mouth, speaking into it proudly, laughing when she played it back. She remembered how Emily once said, "It's like magic, I can keep my voice forever." The mother smiled sadly at that thought. Emily's voice had indeed been kept forever, but it had also brought something else with it, a hidden trace of the truth. When the call finally came, her heart nearly stopped. The investigators had managed to improve the sound quality. They still couldn't hear everything clearly, but they confirmed that the faint background noise was definitely another voice. It wasn't just static. Someone had spoken while Emily was recording. The mother sat in silence as she heard the news. Her heart pounded, her palms were sweaty, but at the same time, hope bloomed inside her like a flower after a long winter. It meant she hadn't imagined it. It meant the toy carried more than just her daughter's laughter. The investigation gained new energy. The toy was now treated like evidence, carefully preserved, analyzed, and studied. Experts worked to separate the layers of sound, trying to uncover the hidden words. The mother was told not to get her hopes too high after all, the recording was old, and technology had its limits. But she didn't care. For her, just knowing there was something there was enough. It was proof that Emily's story wasn't over. She began to feel something she hadn't in years: purpose. Each morning, she woke up with determination. She kept herself busy, reading through old letters, revisiting the places she and Emily had once gone, and speaking once more with neighbors and friends. She wanted to remember everything, to leave no detail forgotten. People around her noticed the change. For years, she had carried sadness like a weight on her shoulders, moving slowly, speaking softly. But now, there was a light in her eyes again. Neighbors whispered, "She looks stronger. Maybe this is the beginning of something." The toy, once just a dusty object on a shelf, had become the center of her world. She kept it close, as if it were a bridge between the past and the present. Every time she pressed the button and heard Emily's giggle, she felt warmth in her heart. Every time she strained to catch the faint voice in the background, she felt hope push her forward. She began to wonder about destiny. Maybe it wasn't by chance that she found the toy after all these years. Maybe she was meant to press that button, meant to hear that sound, meant to bring light back into the case. Perhaps it was Emily's way of reaching out across time, telling her mother, "Don't stop. Keep looking. I'm still here." And so, the shocking discovery was not just about the sound hidden inside the toy. It was about what it awakened in the mother. It reignited her strength, reminded her of the bond that had never broken, and gave her new faith in the journey she had been on for so long. The road ahead was still uncertain. The voice in the background remained a mystery, and no one knew exactly where it might lead. But for the first time in 9 years, the mother felt she was not standing still anymore. The story was moving again. The search was alive once more. And all of it began with a little toy, pressed by small hands long ago, carrying the laughter of a child and a whisper that refused to be forgotten. After the discovery of the recording toy, the world seemed to shift for Emily's mother. 9 years of uncertainty and heartache had filled her days and nights, but now there was a renewed sense of purpose, a spark of hope that refused to fade. The little toy, which had once seemed like just a memory, had become a key to something far greater, something that might finally bring her daughter back, or at least reveal the answers she had been seeking for so long. The investigators took the toy seriously this time. They carefully analyzed the recordings, enhancing the sound, slowing it down, and separating the layers of noise. For the first time in years, Emily's disappearance became an active case again. The mother spent countless hours at the police station, explaining every detail she remembered about the night Emily vanished. She talked about the toy, about Emily's bedtime routine, about the small sounds she had noticed before that had seemed unimportant at the time. Every tiny memory mattered. At home, Emily's room became a place of preparation and reflection. The mother cleaned and arranged the toys, lining them up carefully as if creating a small shrine of hope. Mr. Button sat in the middle, holding pride of place. She would sit for hours, pressing the toy, listening to her daughter's voice over and over. Each time she did, it was as if Emily was speaking directly to her, reminding her to stay strong and never give up. Neighbors and friends noticed the change in her. The quiet, grieving mother had become a woman on a mission, her face showing determination instead of only sorrow. People whispered among themselves, amazed by her resilience. She didn't stop for sleep, meals, or anything else until she had spent every day doing what she could to uncover the truth. Every lead, every small clue, every memory was carefully considered. Slowly, the investigators began to piece together what the toy revealed. The faint background voice was finally partially decoded. It suggested someone had been nearby when Emily recorded her message, but the details were unclear. Still, it gave the authorities a new direction, a thread that had been missing for almost a decade. New searches were organized, carefully planned, and executed with the insight gained from the toy's hidden recording. Throughout it all, the mother remained at the center, providing details only a parent could know. She remembered Emily's favorite hiding spots, the sounds she made when excited, and the small habits that were unique to her daughter. These details, while seemingly minor, helped the investigators understand patterns and possibilities that had been overlooked in the original case. Weeks turned into months. The case slowly regained momentum, and the mother began to feel the possibility of answers growing closer. She allowed herself small moments of joy listening to Emily's laughter on the toy, imagining her daughter walking into the room again. Those moments were bittersweet, filled with both happiness and longing, but they strengthened her resolve to continue. Then, one quiet afternoon, a breakthrough came. A call arrived from the investigators, informing her that a new lead had emerged. They had found a location that matched the clues from the toy's recording and the mother's memories. It was a place Emily had sometimes visited during her childhood, a location that had seemed ordinary at the time but now held the potential to reveal long-hidden truths. The mother felt a mixture of fear and excitement. After 9 years, she had learned to expect disappointment. But this time, she believed. She traveled to the site with the investigators, holding the toy tightly in her hands. Each step she took was measured, her heart racing with anticipation. Memories of Emily's laughter, her playful voice, and the warmth of her hugs filled her mind. She could almost feel her daughter's presence guiding her forward. When they arrived, the investigators carefully examined the area. They searched every corner, asked questions, and reviewed old evidence with the mother's guidance. Though Emily was still not physically present, every new discovery felt like a step closer. It was as if her spirit, captured years ago in that simple toy, had led them here. The mother realized that hope is not always about immediate results. Sometimes, it is about persistence, patience, and the belief that love can bridge time and distance. The little toy had become a symbol of that belief, a reminder that even when everything seems lost, small signs can reignite determination. Days later, the investigation continued, and more pieces of the puzzle came together. Witnesses who had previously been overlooked were re-interviewed. Small details from the past were reconsidered, each one contributing to a clearer picture. The mother stayed closely involved, never allowing fatigue or despair to cloud her focus. Her love for Emily had become her greatest strength, guiding every decision and action. At home, she kept Emily's room exactly as it had been for the past 9 years, but now it also became a place of planning and reflection. She wrote notes, organized information, and spoke aloud to her daughter, imagining Emily listening and encouraging her. The toy remained central, playing Emily's voice as a constant reminder of why she could not give up. Eventually, the mother realized that the journey itself had transformed her. She had learned patience, resilience, and the power of unwavering love. Even if Emily was never found, she knew that the dedication, hope, and courage she displayed would never be forgotten. But deep inside, she believed that her daughter's voice had a purpose, and that one day, the story would find its ending. Through the months of renewed investigation, the community also rallied around her. People shared memories, tips, and support, inspired by the mother's determination. Local news featured her story again, showing how a parent's love and an old recording toy could bring new life to a cold case. She became a symbol of hope for many, showing that giving up is never an option when love is involved. Though uncertainty remained, the mother never wavered. Every day, she pressed the toy's button, listened to Emily's voice, and felt a connection that no time or distance could sever. She smiled through tears, laughed at Emily's playful words, and whispered, "I'll find you. I will always find you." Finally, after months of careful work, investigators traced the clues to a location that held important answers. While the mother still waited for the ultimate reunion, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that began 9 years ago in a quiet bedroom had led her to this point. The love she carried had guided her every step. The toy had bridged the gap between past and present, giving her hope that had never truly faded. In the end, it was clear that some bonds cannot be broken. A mother's love, a child's voice, and the simplest of toys had combined to create a path forward. Even in the darkest times, hope can find a way. And though Emily's physical presence had yet to return, the mother understood that love and persistence were stronger than fear and despair. She pressed the toy one last time that evening, listening to her daughter's laughter fill the room. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they were tears of hope, not sorrow. She whispered softly, "We are closer now, Emily. I can feel it. I will never stop." And for the first time in 9 years, she felt the warmth of certainty, a belief that love had guided her through the impossible, and that soon, everything would change. The journey was far from over, but hope had been rekindled. And sometimes, hope itself is enough to light the way forward, to inspire courage, and to remind us that even the smallest signs, a voice on a toy, a memory from the past, can lead to the greatest discoveries.